What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Austin, and thanks for tuning in for the next installment of our DevvE Roundtable. And joining me from way too early in the morning where he lives is Davin Broadbent. Davin, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Austin. And yeah, look, it was way too early. My first meeting this morning was just after 5 a.m. So now I'm just kind of getting into my day, but I'm still probably 2 cups of coffee short of where I should be for having one of these conversations with you.
Well, let's see. Maybe we'll get tired, Davin. We'll see what happens. I know the UK guys were begging me for one of those. I don't really have that, ability much anymore. So, all right. So I want to kind of paint a little bit of a picture on where the community is these days, just having tapped around with them. We've got all sorts of crazy stuff happening in the US. Unless you're living under a rock, you know that. We have Bitcoin, flirting with all-time high. We have the DevvE vesting essentially coming to an end, and we can touch on that a little bit if we want to. I want to see kind of where we want to go today. We had one community member that asked for more details on the DevX S2 business, and that might be a good start for us if you're open to that. I know there's nuance surrounding that. Maybe you could kick that off. So will a one-size-fits-all theory be applied for big and small clients? Kind of how will that work? Will clients have to purchase DevvE to do the payments? Will clients have to buy it from the treasury stock or OTC? So it does sound like, there's some questions as to how DevvE will be involved there. So I'll kick it over to you, Davin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are brilliant questions, and these are things that we're kind of working through at the moment. So just to give you guys some more context, the S2 business is evolving. It is not yet kind of a go-to-market or a defined entity. What we're doing on the S2 side, or the vision for the S2 business, is broadly that it will be shards as a service. It will be shards that will provide the infrastructure backbone for entities of all sizes, small through to state level. And we're currently doing that in a bespoke way, right? So we're kind of fleshing out and testing out I guess the full depth of the capability on the S2 side with some of the partners that we're working with, some of the projects that we are kind of going through the logistics of at the moment. But the view to that is to kind of package the S2 business to address both, right? We're going to have probably a nuanced enterprise requirement or a nuanced state-based requirement. Now, in fact, we know this already. This is something that we are working through, right now. And we are going to have a shard as a service type, solution as well. So I guess that answers the first part. It's not going to be a one size fits all. And the reason for that is the same reason that, a state level or a large enterprise is not going to buy off the shelf software, for the most part, right? They might use the Microsoft ecosystem, or they might use, AWS or Google Cloud or whatever it is. But there's a fair amount of, I guess, bespoke requirements relating to, everything from, operational security through to, the integrations, any bespoke software and technology they have, their tech resources they have in-house. And, all of those things require a mix and a balance. So there's going to need to be tinker room on a blockchain as a service, shard as a service type solution. There is going to be a lot of flexibility in terms of what people can do, how they can utilize those shards. Obviously, there's a validated question that comes into play there as well. And DevvE is going to be a critical requirement across all of these things. It's going to be a critical requirement across enterprise and state level, as well as at a as a service level. How the purchase of, or how the kind of throughput of DevvE is required will vary depending on each of those different scenarios. There will be requirements, and there will always be an option for people to purchase from the market, DevvE to facilitate those. And that could be a good hedging function as well, right? If the price of DevvE is affordable, then people will go directly to market. And on the SaaS side of things, that's definitely going to make sense. People are just going to want to, stockpile or bank their DevvE to be able to cover those costs. If they see it, it's kind of like in the UK, a lot of people use oil for their heating and things like that, I think it's a kerosene based sort of solution. But there's a kind of a hedging where you decide when to fill up your oil tank, and people, householders, it's a ridiculous thing, but I mean, at a small scale, it makes all sorts of sense. But they'll wait till the market is at a certain point and then invest their entire yearly heating budget to fill that tank up, so that they know that they've got that at the best possible price to cover them throughout that 12-month period. That analogy was a terrible one, but that's kind of how we see the marketplace working. And at an institutional level, there's going to be requirements again to have and to hold, but that may be baked in, because again, we don't want to put barriers and hurdles in front of institutions. We've discussed this many times. One of the biggest problems with what we kind of call retail blockchain at the moment, or retail crypto, is that everyone's expected to do things the crypto way, when in the real world we don't do things that way, right? It's kind of, there was an ad, I saw a TV ad which was fantastic, with a guy who had a roadside stall, and he was selling, I don't know, fruit and vegetables, or I don't know, apples or something like that. And a guy pulls up in his car and says, I'll have one of those or whatever. And he said, excellent, we only take Bitcoin. And the guy's like, what? Like, I've got cash. And he said, no, I'm sorry, it's kind of crypto only. And the guy's like, but I just want an apple. Like, here's the money. He's like, I can't do that. Sorry, it's crypto. Nobody does that in the real world, right? People will take the most fungible and remove as many of those barriers as possible. And so a big part of why we built what we've built, the technology that we've built, the solution that seems to have been a no-brainer kind of when we did it, and lots of companies flirted with, but nobody really got right, was that whole just end-to-end smoothness of kind of providing an enterprise solution, or a state level solution, or even just a small business solution that enables these companies to do what they want to do without saying, sorry, I can only take crypto, or I can only buy this with that type thing. So we provide smoothness, gateways, and entry points for all of these entities. And based on how they want to do business, we bake in DevvE on our side, and there's a number of different solutions for that as well. So long story short, it's not a one-size-fits-all. The second point is, yes, absolutely, DevvE will be required. It's going to be critical across all of these platforms, both on the exchange, on the S2 business, and kind of in everything else that we do. It is the value layer. We've discussed that. How that works is really going to be dealt with on a case by case basis. But we want to make it as kind of simple for people as possible, not as complex, or we're not going to add layers of complexity. We want to make that a natural, smooth solution. So yeah, I hope that kind of gives a kind of a broad brushstrokes overview. I can tell you we're doing some exciting things on what is the S2 side at the moment. We're testing out a lot of, I guess, the use cases. We're really battle testing, the capabilities on a bespoke level. And that is probably the most, interesting and exciting thing that we're doing with some of our largest partners, right now.
So on the S2 side, and real quick, and then I want to kick over to something else, some other stuff that you've been kicking around this week. But on the S2 side, I know we've discussed in the past. We talk about potentially the AWS style UI to really get this technology out there. What is the and again, I know that we've discussed this in the past, but what is the vehicle to do that? Is it as a value add service for a company that's already providing such a thing, or not blockchain as a service, but maybe cloud servers, or what is kind of the team's vision as to how this is going to get out there?
I mean, that's a brilliant question again. And we already have a kind of number of channels and partners lined up to kind of take that forward. But kind of critically, just to kind of summarize what you're asking and to kind of put it into context for people that are watching, there are two aspects there, right? So there's a core service provision aspect. So it is going to be a cloud-based service. So we will be working with cloud-based service providers and partners, so like Amazon and others that will be kind of enabling the deployment of the technology in the shard, and they will also fulfill potentially the other piece, which is the sales channel and the fulfillment piece. So that will be the value add for them. They will have a product that can fit really neatly within their pre-existing kind of tech stack and solution stack, that they can then take to their customers because they already have those too, and provide them with the requirement on demand. We also have outside of that sales channels that can pretty much enable the same kind of throughput to their clientele where there is demand, and that's everyone from telcos through to other software providers with no conflict. We're trying to find, I guess, non-competing market verticals, if you wanted to put it in that kind of that sense, and that's everything from people that already have customers in the space, and that's just from a business point of view, right the way up to governmental, and that's everything on all of the kind of government checklists. If you want to imagine, everything from, and again, you don't have to draw too long a bow to understand all of the different verticals that the blockchain kind of provides solutions for around data and health and resiliency and energy and logistics. All of these things are things that are well known, right? But if those are things that are concerns or care abouts for a government, then there's a good chance there are pre-existing service providers that work in those spaces, or there are entities that sit above those governments that provide those on a global scale. And, we want to and are having conversations with all of those different stakeholders around their needs and requirements. In fact, some of them are coming to us with kind of fairly extended lists of requirements around the fulfillment of, those obligations and providing those services as a value add or a critical piece of infrastructure, and how they deploy those and their needs for those are very different depending on where those partners are. And it's not necessarily always state. It can be kind of entities that service those or sit within that kind of structure. I mean, again, the meetings and the conversations they're never the same. Everybody has different concerns. I mean, ESG is surprisingly one of the most consistent in terms of, we want to make sure that we're balancing our accounts effectively. We're making sure that, we're moving towards, whatever our global emissions targets are, but we're also moving towards a more responsible way of dealing with, everything that we're doing. But more importantly as well, any entities that they deal with that are adversely affecting, them, and then you can, again, kind of draw comparisons there, that they're accountable as well. And there's a quid pro quo, right? There's a push-pull market sort of, elasticity of the demand of, both offsets and carbon credits and other things like that. But that's not what ESG is all about. It's also about management of land and natural resources. And there are, again, scales of which those things are either concerns or cared about or requirements. And, at a national level, those things are huge requirements. Responsible management of resources is a huge concern for many nations and states. If you scale that down to a landholder point of view and perspective, again, there's a lot that people care about in that instance. And then from a business point of view, people that have relationships with those entities and or work within those spaces to maximize the development of those resources in a sustainable way. All of these things need to be managed and accounted for with trust and transparency and integrated with typical normal business solutions, because there has to be a balance sheet involved. People have to be able to, make that make sense in a real world way. So that's where we come in.
So I want to hit you kind of hard with something here, Davin. And I'm going to do this kind of on behalf of what I'm gleaming from the community, right? Which is, if I were to distill down everything that's being talked about, really it boils down to one thing. Some of the scope of what DevvE is working on going to be revealed. Are we going to be put in a position for this bull market that I think everyone feels is like just about to pop off? And I hope you understand what I'm asking, right? Nothing direct. Nothing behind the veil necessarily, but like I think that's on everyone's mind, right? It's like, okay, we've hung in there for quite some time. We've seen the ups and the downs, and the videos came out, and we're trying to like make sense of something that is admittedly really freaking big, right? And I know that it's just kind of on everyone's mind because I got a bunch of DMs about it. I'm like, I can't talk about it
Yeah. I think the answer is yes. I mean, utility is kind of a critical piece, right? And we want to make sure that any of our supporters, anyone that's interested in what we're doing, is able to realize the value and understand the value. And that's everything from using our native chain, which we've discussed. It's deployments of these solutions. It's practical applications. It's being able to practically apply all of the things that we're doing at a kind of a large scale, because what we're doing there is really battle testing the critical infrastructure pieces. So, the long-term plan, which we have discussed, is obviously to turn DevvE and the underlying blockchain and infrastructure into this kind of critical value layer that sits underneath pretty much everything that people do, regardless of whether they know they're doing it, regardless of whether they want to do it. Anything to do with all of the things that we've mentioned, from data, records, healthcare, finance and kind of transactions, tokenized assets. All of these things are layers of that value, and how those things are kind of either managed, transacted, utilized, or kind of realized in both the real world and in the Web3 space. All of that will involve an underlying element of what we've built, and DevvE is critical to that. So in terms of the bigger picture piece, yes, you will absolutely see some movement. I'm not going to promise you critical and again, sailing very close to the wind here, but there will be announcements about some of these bigger picture things that we're working on. There will be a more detailed kind of vision and roadmap. What we are doing, just to give everybody clarity, is we are doing the operational building, the gap analysis, the team, the recruitment. We are pretty much putting all of those building blocks in place to be able to facilitate all of these things. We have, and I can't even list, again, without going through names, the market opportunities that are in front of us. And again, we're not being greedy, we're not cherry picking, but on a weekly basis, there are more opportunities than we can service. We have more interesting meetings and kind of, we are prioritizing. Obviously, a big priority is the exchange. Another big priority is the S2 business, because that underlying, that fulfills and underlies, a lot of what we can layer on top of. But again, in specific market verticals, it's just mind blowing. And having, again, and this because I spoke to you just before we jumped on the call, but I was literally in a 3-hour meeting this morning with some of the most interesting people I've really spoken to in a long time, and just the scope of the opportunities that we are in line to unlock and deliver is vast. And to match and meet all of these expectations, this is where the kind of the operations planning and scaling is critical, and that's happening.
I want to, just for anyone watching, and I know why you guys watch these roundups. It's for Davin, obviously, see him after 3-hour phone calls. But I mean, if we were to look at it just from a crypto objective perspective, right? We have Dev Exchange with very unique technology that literally no one else on the market can operate and can execute on.
Yeah.
We have the shards as a service taken in and of itself, massive opportunity. The work with state level partners, the impact assets, the environmental data. If you were to segment those out and say, okay, I've got a crypto project that does one of these things, right? You would look at it and go, that is more than sufficient, right? That is, each one of these is more than sufficient in and of itself. But to take all of these and slap them together and go, here's what we're working on. I mean, I just to put a little perspective on it, Binance, now again, we're referencing the biggest exchange in the world, but Binance has thousands of employees, guys, thousands of employees, right, to operate in the day-to-day. There's a lot that goes into the back end on this. And of course, we want when news and, when blah, blah, blah. But like to really understand what Davin's talking about here, we have to come forward with things that we can actually execute on. Otherwise, we're just having Q conversations, and there's no point in having Q conversations because they don't materialize into anything. So I appreciate the way that you explain that, Davin, and I appreciate our community for hanging on, even prior to the lid popping off. And once the first lid pops, once you pop, you can't stop. That's what they say about Pringles or Lay's. I don't know which one it is, but it's one of those two chips for sure. So anyhow, anything else you want to say before we wrap this up, Davin?
I think we've covered it. I mean, I really do enjoy these chats, and I kind of jump onto them thinking, oh Christ, what have I done this week? I've done this. Can I talk about that? I am always busy, right? But there's a lot of times when I'm thinking, how is that? Everything that we do, and when I chat to the team, and when we have our kind of weekly whips and meetings, and when we have the broader and more extended stuff, and when I'm starting to kind of layer in some of the bigger partner conversations, things like that, I think, okay, that's important at this level, that's important at this level, but the community and the guys that are watching this, and all of the our supporters are really at the back of my mind all the time, right? These are the guys that are keeping the conversations going. They're being incredibly proactive. Again, I can't tell you how grateful I am to to all of you, and I really want to fill that. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm like, okay, so we're going to have another conversation with Austin. He's going to ask me some tricky questions. How can I give these guys something to, at least kind of stay excited about? And I feel guilty every week that I'm not doing enough. Like I feel, and that's a horrible position for me to be in, because I am naturally the kind of person that wants to just share the exciting news and to, but I'm so mindful of the fact that we are really critically poised with more than our fair share of great opportunities, and lots of those are at kind of or near completion from a partnership point of view and from a deployment point of view, and lots of these are going to be ongoing, and lots of them are ongoing. As an example, we're talking to a fairly large national healthcare provider, shall we say, and there's a lot of nuance within that, and the various markets and industries that they serve. Again, we've talked about the state level stuff. All of these things are real, tangible things that will materialize in real, tangible value. But again, it's the looking, touching, feeling, pieces that I know everybody wants. And we want that for you, right? We desperately want that for you. And we're wanting to make sure that, again, we're not mistiming opportunities. We're not kind of saying that, trust us or hurry up and wait. And so it's with that in mind that I go into every one of these conversations, and I'm mindful of stretching the resources that we have. I'm mindful of giving you guys what you want. And I am advocating, as much as Austin is probably your biggest advocate, and literally every conversation I have with Austin involves, hey, I've had a bunch of DMs. We really need to talk about this, or what can I tell everybody? And, which is fantastic. You guys don't know how good a community advocate you have. But I see all of this too, and I feel, again, a lot of not just pressure, but responsibility to keep you guys informed. And I just want to thank you again for your patience.
Well said, sir. And this is the only time when we're going to be in this time. Once it pops, that's it. There's no going back. Hang on, guys. Beautiful things are being built. Davin, thank you for being so forthright. And even though I know the answers to 75% of the questions I'm asking you, I appreciate you tiptoeing towards the line with me. And potentially getting yourself in lots and lots and lots of trouble for doing so. So thanks, buddy.
As long as nobody watches this, I'm fine. Yeah, nobody's going to watch this, and that's, yeah. And if you do watch it, don't tell Ray.
We get a few hundred a week now, but what's going to happen is when we have 10,000, people on the YouTube or whatever, they're going to go back and watch all of these. Connecting the dots. All right, guys, we're going to get the heck out of here. My name's Austin. Thank you, Davin, so much for joining me. And I'll catch you guys on the next live stream. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.